London, July 1987. A well-dressed Italian man signs in for a routine visit to Knightsbridge Safe Deposit. 45 minutes later, the front doors are locked from the inside. And no one outside has the faintest clue that one of the most sophisticated robberies in British history has just begun. Valerio Vici was never meant for quiet. He had arrived in London from Italy, leaving behind a trail of high-end robberies, police raids, and courtrooms. But he wasn't hiding. He was hunting. And London gave him exactly what he craved. Speed, risk, luxury. The adrenaline of the chase, the velvet comfort of fast money. He bought a Ferrari, threw cash in nightclubs, lived like a king. But kings need thrones. And his fuel was running low. That's when he found Knightsbridge Safe Deposit Center, the perfect place to disappear into wealth. It wasn't a bank. It was a fortress for the rich, hidden in plain sight. Politicians, movie stars, oil barons, all trusted it with their secrets. But prestige comes with blind spots. And Vici saw them all. There he met Parvez Latif, the center's manager. Outwardly, he was professional, reserved, respected. But under the surface, he was collapsing. Gambling debts, drug habits, unpaid loans. Vici didn't need threats. He needed leverage. One look was enough. Latif was ready to sell out. Not for greed, for survival. Vici opened a deposit box under a fake name. Not to store anything, but to gain access. Each visit gave him more intel, security routines, guard positions, surveillance angles. More importantly, he tested Latif. Small favors. Quiet requests. Bending the rules. Latif complied every time. Now came the crew. Vici chose professionals, not thugs. No names, just roles. 2 safecrackers from Milan. 1 getaway driver. 1 man to pose as security. They rehearsed everything, from uniforms to tools to code words. The rule was strict. Vanish after the job. No souvenirs. No stories. The plan was precise. Step 1. Enter during open hours, acting like normal clients. Step 2. Pull weapons once inside the vault. Cuff the guards. Make it look like Latif was forced. Step 3. Hang a closed for maintenance sign on the door. Step 4. Let the rest of the team in through the back. Step 5. Work fast. 2 hours. Crack as many boxes as possible. Get out clean. Every detail depended on trust between criminals. And none of them trusted anyone. But for now life carried on. Vici flashed his Ferrari through central London. Latif greeted clients with his usual calm. Neither let a flicker of tension show. The night before the robbery, Vici stood alone on his balcony. Below him, the lights of London pulsed like a heartbeat. In 12 hours, he would either vanish into legend, or be led away in cuffs. He loaded his revolver. No drama. No fear. Just routine. Tomorrow, the vault would open. And London would never forget his name. The brilliance of the Knightsbridge job wasn't in the violence. It was in the elegance. No ski masks. No midnight break-in. Just quiet confidence and perfect timing. The morning of the robbery, Valerio Vici dressed like a man with nothing to hide. Sharp suit, gold watch, polished shoes. At his side, a tall associate in clean business attire. They walked in through the front entrance like they owned the place. Because for the next 2 hours they would. Inside, the security guards recognized Vici. He was a regular. Always polite. Always on time. They buzzed him through without question. He asked to see his box, number 950. And Latif, playing his part, personally escorted him down into the vault level. What happened next was planned down to the second. Once inside the vault room, Vici and his partner pulled out pistols fitted with silencers. Not to shoot, just to control. The guards were caught completely off guard. Calmly and without panic, they were disarmed, zip-tied, and sat against the wall. Latif put up a show. Raised his voice. Pretended to resist. Cameras were recording. And he needed to look like a victim. No one could know he'd sold out his own kingdom. Upstairs, the front door was quietly locked. A handwritten sign was taped to the glass. Closed. Back in 30 minutes. No alarms. No chaos. Outside, London kept moving. Inside, It was time to go to work. Vicii gave the signal. The back entrance opened, and 3 more men entered. 2 safecrackers with custom tools, and 1 more dressed as a security guard to blend in just in case. They moved fast, but not recklessly. No shouting. No panic. Every step was part of the choreography. Each safety deposit box presented a new challenge. Different locks, different weights. Some were easy. Others took skill. They worked in rotation. Cracking, grabbing, stacking. Jewelry. Cash. Gold bars. Passports. Guns. Even a few things that looked like evidence no one wanted found. Vicii moved through the room like a conductor. Calm, precise, efficient. He knew they had no more than 2 hours before the next scheduled client would knock. Or worse, a rail guard would stop by early. They wore gloves. No fingerprints. No names spoken aloud. Everyone worked like it was just another job. For them it was. Only Vicii knew what it really meant. 1 shot to make a legend. 1 job to retire from everything. By the 90-minute mark, they'd emptied over 100 boxes. Latif stayed silent, sitting in the corner, trying not to think about the future. Because once the money left the building, so did Vicii, and there were no promises he'd ever come back. 2 hours later, the crew rolled their final bags out the back door. No alarms. No police. Just footsteps vanishing into quiet London streets. The vault door was left wide open. The lights stayed on. But everything of value was already gone. No drama. No bodies. Just silence. Until morning. Monday morning. Knightsbridge safe deposit opened like any other day. The receptionist arrived first, saw the handwritten sign still taped to the glass. Odd. But not alarming. She unlocked the door, stepped inside, and stopped. The lobby was empty. Silent. Too silent. Downstairs, the vault stood wide open. Inside, the scene hit like a thunderclap. The floor was scattered with broken locks, shredded velvet linings, and half-emptied boxes hanging ajar like open mouths. The guards were still zip-tied, shaken but unharmed. Parvez Latif sat slumped in the corner, eyes wide, lips tight, playing the role of traumatized victim. She called the police. Within minutes, the building swarmed with officers, detectives, sirens echoing down the quiet Kensington street. But the storm came too late. The thieves were long gone, no getaway car left behind, no alarms tripped, no DNA. Nothing but precision. Scotland Yard stood stunned. In just under 2 hours, the gang had broken into 113 deposit boxes. Estimated value: nearly $98 million. Jewelry, diamonds, bearer bonds, cash, gold. Many of the items weren't even officially recorded. Because clients paid extra for anonymity. What was lost that day? Only the victims and the thieves truly knew. The press erupted. The perfect heist. Knightsbridge cleaned out. Whoever did this knew everything. And they did. Every second of the job had been rehearsed. Vicii had drawn the blueprints from memory. Every corridor, every blind spot, every shift change. They'd used no radios, no phones, no getaway car to trace. The tools were dumped. Clothes burned. Even the security footage conveniently malfunctioned, thanks to Latif, who had shut down key cameras minutes before the break-in. The genius was in the simplicity. This wasn't chaos. This was calm execution. No violence. No panic. Just 4 hours of absolute control. But even perfection leaves shadows. One of the guards recalled something. A name. A habit. A scent. Slowly, piece by piece, the cracks began to show. Vicii, meanwhile, didn't disappear. He celebrated. Champagne. Models. Flashy dinners. As if he wanted to be caught. Or maybe, deep down, wanted to be remembered. Police started digging. Interviews. Fingerprint matches. European warrants. And then, they found a match. Not from the vault. From the registration form Vicii filled out when he first rented box 950. His real name. Valerio Vicii. He didn't even bother to fake it. The illusion of the perfect crime began to unravel. Not with sirens or arrests, but with a careless signature. When detectives ran the name from box 950's registration, the system lit up. Valerio Vicii. Italian national. Wanted in connection with over 50 armed robberies across Italy. Known for charm, speed, and total disregard for rules. And now, apparently arrogance. Interpol issued a red notice. The hunt was on. But Vicii wasn't hiding. In fact, he never even left London. He dyed his hair, changed apartments, swapped license plates, but he still cruised in his red Ferrari, still partied in Mayfair, still acted like nothing had happened. He thought they wouldn't find him. Or maybe, deep down, he wanted to be chased. Meanwhile, Latif was cracking. At first, he stuck to the story. Forced at gunpoint, no knowledge of the robbers, traumatized. But pressure mounted. The media was relentless. Investors pulled out. And then came the forensic audit. Latif's bank records told a different story. Cash deposits in foreign accounts, massive debt suddenly paid off, communication logs that didn't match his statements. Detectives brought him back in. This time his hands shook. He tried to stall, then to shift blame. But eventually something broke. In a quiet interrogation room, without a lawyer, Latif admitted the truth. He'd let them in. He hadn't planned it, but he hadn't stopped it either. Said he was desperate. Said Vicii offered him a way out. That confession cracked the case wide open. Surveillance photos were enhanced. One grainy frame showed Vicii's associate's watch. Custom-made. Rare. Trackable. Within a week, police traced the accessory to a high-end dealer in Milan. That gave them a name. And the name led to a call. That call led to a tap. And then finally to a mistake. Vicii phoned a shipping company. Wanted to send some artwork out of the UK. Under a false name, yes, but with his real voice. The line was recorded. Voice matched. Warrant signed. The police waited until he returned to his Knightsbridge apartment. No chase. No scene. They knocked. He opened the door. And smiled. About time, he said. But this wasn't the end. Not even close. Because what Vicii did next was even bolder than the heist itself. Valerio Vicii sat in custody. Cuffed. Calm. Even amused. He answered questions. Played coy. Never flinched. When officers pressed him, he smirked. It was a good job, wasn't it? But behind the scenes, panic set in. The arrest made headlines. Photos of the suave Italian playboy who had emptied the vaults of Britain's elite were everywhere. But what the public didn't know, and what terrified the authorities, was that most of the money hadn't been found. The vault was empty. Vicii's accounts were clean. And his crew? Vanished. They'd followed the rule. Disappear. Interpol scrambled across Europe. Raids in Milan, phone taps in Zurich, interviews in Monaco. A few suspects were picked up, but no one talked. No loot recovered. Every path hit a wall. Inside the UK, the scandal went deeper. Victims of the robbery were powerful. CEOs, MPs, aristocrats. And many had stored items they didn't want publicly listed. Unregistered cash. Untaxed assets. Even blackmail material. Now it was gone. And they couldn't exactly file full reports. Meanwhile, Vicii was playing a different game. He knew he'd get time. But he also knew he had leverage. The loot. The crew. The map of where it all went. And the authorities wanted it back. So he negotiated. If they reduced his sentence, he'd help. Not a full confession. Just breadcrumbs. Names. Hints. Connections. Enough to make it seem like progress. It worked. His charm helped. So did the fact that no one wanted the truth to go public. Some of those deposit boxes contained more than valuables. They contained secrets. But while Vicii played diplomat, Parvez Latif fell apart. He was charged as an accessory, stripped of everything, and abandoned by the very world he'd once protected. In court, he tried to paint himself as a man cornered by debt. The judge didn't buy it. He was sentenced, quietly, without fanfare. As the case dragged on, something unexpected happened. Vicii started writing. Letters. Diaries. Memories. A full account of the heist. Not for the court, but for himself. He wanted it on record. Not just the facts, the feeling. The adrenaline. The calculation. The art of it all. In his mind, This wasn't a crime. It was a masterpiece. But masterpieces don't last forever. And Vicii wasn't finished writing his ending yet. Valerio Vicii was sentenced to 22 years in a British prison. A headline name, a national embarrassment, and an international curiosity. But even behind bars, he didn't fade. He lifted weights, wrote letters, entertained journalists. A criminal in theory, but in spirit, still the man in the Ferrari. What made Vicii dangerous wasn't just what he'd done. It was what he still controlled. The location of the money. The identities of missing crew members. And he made sure everyone knew it. He dangled details like bait. Enough to keep interest alive but never enough to close the case. Years passed. Authorities recovered less than a third of the stolen $98 million. The rest? Gone. Dissolved into shadows. Offshores, aliases, vanished fences. Some believed Vicii hid the money himself. Others thought it had long since changed hands. He never confirmed either version. Then, in 1992, a twist no one saw coming. Vicii was transferred back to Italy under a partial release program. Daytime freedom, nighttime confinement. The official reason? Good behavior. Unofficially? Italy wanted their own thief back. And Vicii wanted something more. One last act. On April 19, 2000, he was granted temporary leave to visit a villa near Pescara, part of his semi-open detention. What the authorities didn't know. He was planning another robbery. Same flair. Same overconfidence. But this time, it didn't go to plan. A shootout erupted. Police closed in. Vicii pulled a gun. And for the first time in his life, the charm didn't work. He was shot dead in the crossfire. No grand escape. No cinematic exit. Just silence. The man who once walked out of London's most secure vault without triggering a single alarm died in a dusty Italian driveway. Bleeding, unarmed, forgotten. Of the original crew, most were never identified. The loot remains largely unrecovered. And the Knightsbridge robbery stands today not just as one of the richest heists in British history, but as a monument to criminal precision. No hostages. No casualties. Just one open vault and a city full of questions. He walked into Knightsbridge like a gentleman. And walked out a ghost with £98 million.